Greetings, Earthlings. This is your favorite redacted homie coming to you from an undisclosed location that may or may not be a secret moon base. Hell of a view. Stars as far as the eye can see. Or so I've been told. But I thank you for tuning into another video, and today we're going to talk about something that's pretty near and dear to my heart as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, die hard, even though they piss me off more often than not anymore, but still, love my Steelers. But we're going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger and the fact that tonight may very well be his final game in Pittsburgh. And just say, first argument's sake, if it is, a hell of a way to go out Monday night in Pittsburgh against Cleveland, being from Ohio and all that. It's not a bad way to go out. And, of course, if he wins and retires, no better way to go out except with a Super Bowl, of course. But the thing is, I'm not buying into this whole retirement talk. I'm really not. I've been saying it all year. I don't think he's going to retire. Honestly, I think he's going to come back for one more year. I do not think he's retiring. And I know this week he's kind of hinted at retirement and all that stuff, but I mean, how many times have we heard him over the years just totally troll the media and all this stuff? Like, how many times does he have a bad game and the media will ask him questions like, oh, I guess I don't have it anymore. And then the next week come back and like throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever. He likes messing with the media. So that makes me believe that if he has not already said, I am retiring at the end of the year, if he hasn't said it already, he may still be thinking about it, but I don't think he's leaning towards retirement as all these reports say. I think he's coming back for one more year. Because honestly, there's a lot of people in that organization that think that this team is a few players away from really being a contender again. Now, whether or not you think that's true, a lot of people in the organization believe it. I'm not 100% sure if I believe it, because I think there's a lot of structural issues with this team, from the roster to the coaching staff to the front office. There's a lot of bad things with this team. So I think they're a lot more than just a few pieces away from being a contender, but that's not what a lot of people in this organization think. And the fact of the matter is that they're probably going to have a significantly decent draft pick. Unfortunately, they're not going to get a third-round compensatory for Bus Dupree, because he is proven to be who he is, an injury-prone bust who only played well the last couple of years to get his big contract, and thank God Pittsburgh didn't give it to him. You know, let Tennessee take care of that albatross-ass contract, because Bus Dupree's garbage. Been garbage since day one. Didn't like the fact we drafted him. I thought he was terrible when we drafted him and overrated as all hell. But that's neither here nor there. But we still going to have some decent draft picks, and we've got about 34 million, in between 34 and $35 million in projected cap space. And that's before we would restructure and probably cut some people, because I think there's some people that are going to be cut. So Pittsburgh, they do have some, let's just call it ammunition, to greatly improve the roster. So I think that's the biggest reason why Ben's going to come back for one more year to try to hit it. And I have two schools of thought on this. First we'll talk about whether he comes back or not. What's the thing of that? A part of me thinks that could be a good thing, and obviously there's a part of me thinks it's a bad thing. The good part of it is thinking, okay, let's draft some players. Let's get the offensive line and defensive lines better, especially get a better offensive line in there so we can establish the run, get a better offensive coordinator, and Ben can still do some stuff. But you need to surround him. He's not the kind of guy who's going to make everyone around him better. He can't make a play like he used to. He can't play that backyard football anymore. So you're going to have to surround him with a good offensive line that can give him time to throw, and a running game that can take a lot of the pressure off him. If they can do that this offseason and he comes back, the Steelers can do some damage, because, like I said, not sold on the Browns' future. The Ravens, I think they're crumbling. And the Bengals, they look like a team on the come up, but the Browns looked exactly that way last year, and look what happened this year. We'll see what happens when they actually have expectations on their ass. Although they'll have a way better quarterback than the Browns do. So if he comes back, then and they can do that, then okay, I'm okay with it. But on the other hand, if he does come back, you could quite possibly hamstringing this organization for another year. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure of that because, let's face it, there isn't a whole lot of sexiness with the quarterbacks in this draft, in my opinion. I mean, I wasn't too fond of last year's quarterback class. I think this one might be worse. There's a lot of quote-unquote potential in this draft. Like, everybody wants Pittsburgh to draft Kenny Pickett. I'm not sold on this dude. I know he broke Marino's records at Pitt and all that stuff. I just don't buy him at the next level. Honestly, of the top quarterbacks in the draft, the only one that I think might be good and potentially good would be Carson Strong out of Nevada. And I say that because he's essentially a Roethlisberger clone. He's got a huge cannon on his shoulder, and he's compared a lot to Roethlisberger. But like I said, I'm not sold on Matt Corral. Then there's a Sam Howell at North Carolina. I don't know about him. Malik Willis at Liberty. He's got some seriously good athleticism, and there is some potential with Malik Willis. But I think dude's 2-3 years away from being a legitimate NFL starter. Although he is the kind of quarterback that a lot of people believe that the NFL is transitioning to. The quarterback who can run and pass. So I think that's where the evolution of the game is going. So if Pittsburgh could get him and then have a veteran quarterback, presumably Ben, play for another year to maybe give him some seasoning. Because like none of these quarterbacks, the Steelers are going to have to, if Ben retires, the Steelers are going to have to bring in a veteran. Unless they want to ride with Mason Rudolph, which I don't see them doing. Because I'm not a big hater of Mason Rudolph as other Steeler fans, but I will say this. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I do think he's a very capable backup, but that's all Mason Rudolph is at this point. Just a very capable backup. There's nothing wrong with that. You can make a hell of a career out of that. Look at Charlie Batch. You know, Mike Tomczak. There are dudes who are career backups that are pretty damn good. Bubby Brister, once we found a better quarterback. Because he was nothing but a backup, although he pulled one out of his ass every once in a while. But that's what I say. I think Ben's coming back, even if they draft a quarterback early, which they probably will, and even though Mike Tomlin has already said he has no interest in starting over with a young quarterback. So let's say he does retire and they don't go the Mason Rudolph route. What's out there in the veteran pool? I mean, let's be honest here. First off, let me just put this shit to rest right now. Aaron Rodgers is not coming to Pittsburgh, okay? Aaron Rodgers can pretty much pick and choose where he wants to go. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh may be a great town and a great fan base, albeit very toxic and entitled, but nobody wants to be traded to Pittsburgh, especially now. Because a lot of the mystique of being a Pittsburgh Steeler, that's so far in the past, you can't even see it anymore. Let's just be honest. That whole culture in there is completely different than it used to be. I mean, a lot of people want you to believe it's still the same culture it was even 5 years ago, but it's not. The culture of the Steelers what used to be, that died the day Dan Rooney died. So that's another thing. And Aaron Rodgers, if he does not stay in Green Bay, which I honestly think there's a good chance he does, he's going out west somewhere. I don't see him playing. I see him playing somewhere in California. I would not be shocked if he goes to San Francisco, because Trey Lance is probably not going to be ready for another year or two, so he'd be a good bridge quarterback. I see him in the West Coast somewhere. Or in Vegas if the Raiders decide to move on for Derek Carr, which I don't think they will. That's one guy, get out of the way. Another one, Russell Wilson, that's another thing. I think there's a better chance that Russell Wilson would come to Pittsburgh than Aaron Rodgers, but I still think it's very unlikely. I think Russell Wilson is going to end up in Houston. That's where I think Russell Wilson is going. And, of course, when he goes to Houston, that leaves open the other possibility of Deshaun Watson. But I don't see Pittsburgh being willing to trade the amount of draft picks and assets and future picks that it would take to get him, because for some reason Houston still thinks they're going to get like multiple first round picks for him, and I think you could probably get one or two, but they want something like 4. There ain't no way in hell is no one going to do that with all that baggage that comes with him. And I'm not going to talk about the issues he has off the field, and the hinky shit going on with that, because I honestly think something is very, very weird about that whole situation, and I may talk about that in a future video. I don't know. Could piss off a lot of the people who watch my videos, but it's just a feeling I have about that. That another story for another time. But I don't think anyone's going to pay what they want for Deshaun Watson. Although, if Pittsburgh could somehow finagle a trade for Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't hate that. If he leaves all that baggage behind him and takes care of all the civil issues, and he comes to Pittsburgh with a clean slate, I mean, dude, can you imagine Deshaun Watson? That would be a trade I would not mind. But I don't think that's happening either. Honestly, there's 3 veteran quarterbacks I think Pittsburgh could bring in if Ben does not come back, which, like I said, this is all basically hypotheticals because he's not retiring. Number 1, and the most likely, would be Matt Ryan. Now, if Ben retires, the Falcons more than likely they'll try to trade Matt Ryan, but I don't know if they'll get enough for him what they would want. I think they should trade him because they could probably get a 4th or 5th round pick out of him. I don't know if you get anything more, maybe a 3rd and a 6th, maybe. I don't think you'll get anything better than that, but hell, a 3rd. If you get a 3rd round this year and like a 6th next year, that would be better than, just cutting him outright and getting nothing for him in the offseason, which is what is rumored they're going to do. But even that, I don't know if Pittsburgh should trade for Matt Ryan, but if he is released outright and he's a free agent, can sign with anyone, drafting a quarterback and then signing Matt Ryan to a 2-year deal for maybe, I don't know, $25 million, that's not horrible for a starting quarterback who can, if nothing else, be a game manager and a damn good bridge quarterback to a young guy so we can give him a couple of years. Sort of like what Ben could do, but I think that Matt Ryan could be a better game manager than Ben, because as much as Ben tries to be that game manager, deep down he's still that gunslinger that he's always been, and he wants to be that, even though he can't be that on a regular basis. Every now and then he can pull a throw out of his ass, but he needs to be more of a game manager, and I just don't think he has that in him for the long haul, but Matt Ryan does. That would be the most likely of scenarios. The second scenario is a little less likely. Maybe they swing a trade for Derek Carr. That I wouldn't hate, because if we could trade for Derek Carr, I don't think we'd have to give up a first-round pick for Carr. We'd have to give up some picks and maybe a player or two, but what the hell, I mean, honestly, it sucks we don't have Juju under contract for another year, because I would throw Juju in that deal right now for Derek Carr. Because if we get a quarterback like Derek Carr, then we wouldn't have to draft a quarterback. We can just draft and beef up that offensive line and beef up the defensive line, because I think that's what they need to focus a lot of their attention on this year's draft. Because Pittsburgh really does need to just let, if Ben does come back, whatever, but they need to focus on building up the offensive and defensive lines. You got to start with the line of scrimmage, because that's where everything starts. You win the battle at the point of attack, and we're not winning those battles, and it's showing. That's why this team is so damn bad. So, but if we got a Derek Carr, we could use a lot of our salary cap space and our draft picks to really beef up the interior of both our offensive and defensive lines, which are the most essential parts. I mean, guard and center are just absolutely atrocious for us. I was a fan of the Kendrick Green pick, and I was going to give Adrian Clem the benefit of the doubt, because when he was promoted after our old offensive line coach left, he was promoted, and he said he was going to bring just a toughness and a meanness and just a physicality to it, simplify this blocking schemes, and just, like I said, hat on a hat, drive the guy off the ball. And Kendrick Green was seemingly the perfect guy for that. He was mean, he was strong, but Kendrick Green is absolutely horrible. Now, maybe it's just because he can't play the center position. He'd be a better guard. Maybe. But I don't know. I don't see Kendrick Green as an NFL lineman, period. I really don't. And it sucks, because I talked about when we drafted him, there were other centers better for the draft, but this is a guy Adrian Clem fell in love with and wanted him for his physicality. And he does have a mean streak, but he doesn't really have the skill to go along with it. So we need a lot of interior offensive line help. And Kevin Dotson, I don't know. I was a big mark for Kevin Dotson last year. This year, I don't know if it's injuries or the sophomore slump or whatever, but he has been a shell of what he once was. And so, but I got a little off topic with that. I apologize. We're talking about Ben, not the draft. I'll get into that after the season. So, bottom line, and then the third, let me get to the third one. Sorry about that. Like I said, I tend to ramble sometimes. I apologize and get off topic. But the third possibility, and this is the least likely because I don't think he's going anywhere, and a lot of Steeler fans are probably going to put a curse on me for saying this, Kirk Cousins. I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. Like, I don't think, like, a lot of Minnesota Vikings fans and people in general want to blame Kirk Cousins for all of Minnesota's problems, but trust me, I'm not saying Cousins has been 100% perfect in Minnesota. No one's 100% perfect any damn where. But the problems in Minnesota go way beyond Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins doesn't block. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't coach. He doesn't hand off to an injured to a running back who's injured all the damn time. He's great when he's in there, but he's an injury waiting to happen in Dalvin Cook. So, Kirk Cousins, he could be kind of a dark horse in Pittsburgh. I really think that we could be at least challenged for the playoffs. I don't see this team winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. Now, a lot of people may disagree that this team is one or two players away from being a Super Bowl team. I don't see that at all. But we're going to find out just how close they are because, like I said, Ben's not retiring. No need to shed any tears tonight. Ben's not going to retire. Because if he was going to retire, he would have announced that weeks ago. If he was going to retire. Because a person like Ben, he likes the attention. So he's going to want to make every home game special and every road game he goes on like a retirement tour. Ben has not said anything about retiring. He's hinted at it to troll the media because he likes messing with you people. He likes to mess with you. That's all it is. It's trolling. And Ben tonight, whether they win or lose, he will not confirm or deny his retirement plans. He'll just mess with you more often than not. And I think come January, at the end of the season, he will say that he's coming back for one more year. And next year will be his last year. So no need for crying and teary eyes tonight, people. Ben's not retiring. Period. Honestly, with the exception of maybe Matt Ryan, if you can get him on the cheap, he's the best option for Pittsburgh going forward next year. None of these quarterbacks here really, none of them would be ready to start day one. So you need a veteran anyway. And Tomlin's already said that he doesn't want to start over with a rookie quarterback, which is very good for people who want Tomlin out of there like me, because I think Tomlin will probably resign as coach when Roethlisberger does retire, because he doesn't want to start over. Because let's face it, Mike Tomlin's body of work the last couple of years hasn't been that great, and what's coincided with that is Roethlisberger's diminished skills. So not that I didn't have this thought before, but my thoughts have been kind of confirmed that the success the Steelers have had over the past decade, which hasn't been a lot, and on paper it looks good, but it's actually been an epic failure the last 10 years, and they've done more with less than any team in history, in my opinion. Or done less with more, rather, excuse me. Done less with more. I'm a little scatterbrained. But basically, it's been a failure in my book. But that success in all those games that Tomlin has won, is it more because of Tomlin's great coaching, quote unquote, or is it because of Ben Roethlisberger? That's the question. So basically, long story short, sorry about the tangent. Roethlisberger's not retiring. Like I said, there's no real better option for veterans, or there's no good rookies. I don't see if any of these quarterbacks become great starters and quality starters in the future. I don't see it in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm not sold on Pickett. Strong is okay. Corral, I mean, he did get hurt in the Sugar Bowl, but that's just an ankle sprain, so he should be fine, obviously, by the time the pro days and the combine and stuff roll around. So, I mean, they could let Ben go and draft a quarterback. I mean, I guess I wouldn't hate that if it happens, but really, Ben's the best option going forward for us. Unless we get Matt Ryan on the cheap, because the rest of these quarterbacks are under contract, and it's going to cost a lot of draft picks to get them, especially for a quarterback-desperate team like Pittsburgh. you're going to get raked over the coals. So Ben Roethlisberger is coming back next year. Even if he's not 100% decided by now, he will, because he doesn't want to end the year like this. He wants to see a team with some actual cap space and some draft capital see what they can do. And he will, and I think he'll come back. Especially, like I said, we had this. How many years in a row have we had to restructure contracts and cut people just to get enough cap space to sign our draft picks? We're going to have over $30 million in cap space this year, so we can afford to make a move or two. And you can find some good guards and good centers, especially. You can find them in the draft, obviously, especially in the mid to late rounds. You can come across a damn good interior offensive lineman. And honestly, 3-4 defensive linemen, the 0 and 5 techniques, you can find them late in the draft too. Look at like Isaiah Loudermilk. Dude's a future stud. I swear. He looks physically and aesthetically, he looks like Cam Hayward, but he plays like Brett Kiesel, and I'm okay with that. So you can find those guys, and you can also sign, I don't know, maybe give Joe Hayden a little extension, because I wasn't 100% sold on what he had left in the tank, but seeing what happened when he was out and when he came, since he's come back, the defense is way better. So Joe Hayden is still the best defensive back we got, not named Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think Ben will come back for one more hurrah. The gunslinger will come back for one last ride. That's what I truly believe, and we will find that out. But still, enjoy the game for what it is. If it is his last game, hopefully they win. You would like to see him his last game in Pittsburgh to just absolutely annihilate the Browns. The Browns were eliminated from the playoffs last night, so that kind of sucks. I was hoping to be like an elimination game. But Pittsburgh, the Steelers still got a lot to play for. If nothing else, pride. That's a hell of a lot to play for. So, I thank you all for watching. And also, let me know in the comments what you think, whether you think he's going to retire or whatever. I really want to know what you guys think. Because, like I said, I don't have any inside information on this. This is just my gut feeling. I don't think he's retiring. I think he would have announced it already. He's just trolling people for his own amusement. He likes to mess with the media. He's done it before. We've seen it. And I said at the beginning of the year, Ben's not going to retire. I know they think he's going to retire, but he's not going to retire. And if he wants to come back, they will let him come back. I said the only thing that would that would force him to retire or make him retire is a Super Bowl, which we knew that wasn't going to happen, and another major injury, which is still a possibility, but he's been relatively healthy, knock on wood. But just, we're going to enjoy the game tonight. Obviously, Pittsburgh and Cleveland, that's actually starting to feel like a Pittsburgh-Cleveland rivalry again, too. Cleveland is okay. They're not as good as people think they are. But at least we still got the better quarterback, Cleveland. Oh! But, again, I thank you for watching. Tune in tonight for what could be Roethlisberger's last game. I don't think it will be, but you never know. And again, I thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Peace.